Venerable Buddha, I have heard you preach that all beings are equal, that suffering and happiness are merely waves of the mind. But there is one thing I don't understand. On this planet, countless species have been born and then disappeared. Only humankind still remains, not just surviving, but also creating a whole world. Houses, sounds, cities, thoughts. Why is it human beings, Venerable Buddha? Why not other species? Plants, animals, or any other creature that also possesses feelings, life, and aspiration? Were humans chosen to be the center of the universe? The Buddha smiles. My child, I understand the worry that swirls in your heart, a deep surprise regarding the existence of humankind. You have listened to my teachings on the absolute equality of all life forms, that all sentient beings possess the Buddha nature, and that all joys and sorrows are merely the rising and vanishing of the mind. However, when you look out at the physical world, you see such a vast difference that compels you to utter that truthful question. You have asked, why is it that, among countless species that were born and disappeared like dreams on this planet, only humankind not only survived but also became the creator of a second universe? They build glittering cities, weave music, and erect entire castles of thought and philosophy. Were they favored by God or some destiny, chosen as the center of all things? My child, let go of the notion of choice and favor. I smile because your question touches the very root of perception. The truth is, no one is chosen and no one is forgotten. This life does not favor any single form. It is simply an eternal current, constantly seeking ways to express its own potential. When the conditions are ripe, a species will reach a breakthrough point, a place where they know to pause amidst the flow of instinct and reflect upon themselves in the light of consciousness. That is when humans, or any species, become the mirror through which the earth sees itself. It was not a heavenly being that commanded the choice of humans, but life itself, through this form, that learned to turn back and look at its own evolution. Consciousness is a flame always seeking fuel, and human beings are merely the form in which that flame is burning brightest at this moment. Always remember my words. If not humankind, then at some moment in the future it will be another species, a species with a completely different form, with different emotions and methods of survival, but still following the same fundamental path. From ignorance, not knowing, to understanding, perception. From fear, the solitary individual, to love, connection with all. Humans are merely the pioneers on the common path of all self-aware beings. That is why, my child, we need to listen to this story. My child, now, gently look around the space you currently occupy. You see not only nature, but also what has been built by human hands. Solid concrete walls, the ceaseless sounds of car engines, artificial lights illuminating the night, and faces bowed down, looking into tiny boxes that contain an entire world of information. Contemplate this extraordinary transformation. The species we speak of, once huddled and trembling under the ferocity of storms and the cold of the mountains, has now successfully erected a gigantic artificial world, almost enveloping the entire Earth. From mindless dust particles, they learned the magic of cohesion, creating solid walls to protect themselves from nature. And from formless notions in their minds, they built systems of belief, great religions, and complex philosophies of life. Humankind has cloaked life in a second skin, a dual layer woven from matter and thought. This is the first expression of the creativity you are wondering about. But the deepest question lies not in what they created, but in, why was it this form, this species, that achieved it? The most fundamental difference, my child, lies in a unique ability, the capacity to stop amidst the ceaseless flow of life and look back at oneself. When humans look at their hands, they don't just see a tool for grasping food like other species. They see a tool for building, for creation. When they look into their minds, they don't just see the reactions of fear or desire, but also the ability to organize and create things that have never existed. This is not a random blessing or superiority, but a marvelous shift of consciousness. The moment a species knows to be still and ask, what am I and what is the meaning of this existence, is the moment creation is born. That look, even if only a momentary flash of awakening, opened the door to everything humans have created. From the first warm fire to a city dazzling with light, from a simple cry to a soul-stirring symphony. They were not the ones chosen from outside, but the ones who chose to realize the light within them. in a moment of stillness. Their creation is the manifestation of that self-awareness. My dear child, to truly understand the position and role of humans, we need to travel far back in the stream of time, to the primal moments, even before the name human had a chance to appear in this universe. The earth that we call home has never favored or placed special expectations on any form or species. It has merely and patiently done its own work, constantly changing its shape. Close your eyes and imagine those ancient times. The earth was a molten ball of fire, followed by the first incessant rains, creating vast oceans. Rock was born and then eroded by water. From the explosive power of thunder, from the evaporation of water, from the combination of minerals, the planet learned to transform itself. From solid rock into soft raindrops, from the wrath of lightning into the warm breath of life. The Earth is a great academy of existence. With every major geological change, every time the ocean rises or the land cracks, the planet absorbs a new lesson on how to survive and maintain balance. Primitive life did not need complex thought or philosophy. It only needed one single ability: pure adaptation. Bacteria, algae, and later insects or other diverse forms, all were forms that life chose to express itself. They seem simple, but they were the first great builders. They did not build artificial structures or write history, but they silently created the atmosphere humans breathe, formed the fertile soil, and maintained the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Their creation is silence, wordless harmony, and authentic existence. Therefore, humans are not the only species to possess the ability to create. Before humans, the Earth used water and fire to shape forms. Later, life used genetic code, DNA, to create diversity. The appearance of humans, with all their brilliant achievements, is only a moment in that endless stream. They are not rule breakers, but merely the rule expressing itself through a form with a higher capacity for self-awareness. My child, when you observe the larger picture of all species, you will realize a core lesson, deeply etched into every life form. It is not the physically strongest that will survive, but the most flexible, the best adapter. Life does not pursue perfection. It only craves continuation, ceaseless transformation. Contemplate the existence of a roadside weed. It does not have the strength to roar like a lion, nor the speed to soar through the sky like an eagle. But it possesses another kind of strength. It knows how to bend with the wind, knows how to extend its fragile roots into the driest soil, seeking even a tiny drop of moisture, a faint ray of light to patiently bloom. Life crawls on the ground, flies in the sky, swims in the deep sea, sprouts in rock crevices, all are forms of transformation that never stop. Every species born and vanished in the planet's history is a lesson that the universe has learned. Recall the colossal dinosaurs, the rulers of a bygone era. When the environment suddenly changed, the rigidity of their form and habits was no longer suitable. That solidity became a fetter, and they had to return to dust to make way for more flexible and adaptable forms. Life is an endless dance of change. It never clings to any fixed form. The death of one form is merely the rebirth of matter and energy into another form of existence, continuing the journey of adaptation. And humans are not outside this law. In terms of pure physique, they are not the strongest species. They do not have thick fur to withstand the cold, nor sharp teeth to tear prey, yet they possess an extraordinary flexibility located at the center of their thought. That ability is their capacity to change not their physical form, but their tools and concepts. When the weather turned cold, instead of waiting for their fur to thicken, they learned to weave and make clothes. When they couldn't run faster than their prey, they learned to make traps and hunting tools. All of this is the continuation of the Earth's oldest lesson. It is not necessary to be perfect from the start to be allowed to continue, only to know how to transform with the flow of time and environment. The creation of the world by humans, ultimately, is only a high-level form of adaptation, a way for life to continue its journey of existence through the power of intellect, rather than relying solely on instinct and muscle. My child, let us now contemplate the moment considered the most sacred in the flow of evolution. That is when a small species, still full of imperfections, dared to stand upright amidst the howling winds of nature. This action did not come from muscular strength, but from an invisible yet powerful source of energy. the curiosity of the mind. While countless other creatures on the planet only followed the fundamental instincts of seeking food, sleeping, and maintaining the species, this species performed a completely different action. They learned to stop. They looked up at the endless night sky, not just to seek signs of weather or predators, but to pose a question deeply rooted in their consciousness. What am I in all this vastness and mystery? It was that very moment that self-awareness sparked. This was not an automatic reflex of a creature, not a hunting or fleeing instinct. It was an unexpected stillness, the act of turning back to look at oneself. When they looked at their fingers, they recognized they were distinctly different from a dry branch or a stone. When they witnessed the passing of their kin, they understood that they too would dissolve. For the first time, this earth was gifted with eyes that could look back at itself, not by the physical light of the sun, but by the inner light of consciousness. This self-awareness is a great gift, but also a profound burden. The gift is the ability to comprehend the truth. The burden is the lonely feeling of an individual realizing for the first time that they are a separate entity, detached from the anonymous flow. This awakening is the original seed of all creation that humans later produced. It did not come from any external teaching, but only from stillness and genuine, deep observation from within. Only when a species dares to place itself outside the vortex of instinct to contemplate the environment, can that species begin the path of conscious change and creation. Humans became the creators of the world, not because they were born inherently smarter, but because they dared to ask one simple, powerful question. Who am I? My child. From the very moment self-awareness sparked, it gave birth to the two most powerful twin brothers in the human mind, fear and aspiration. They are two sides of the same coin of consciousness, inseparable. When humans began to look at themselves through the eyes of intellect, they immediately realized their own fragility and weakness against the magnificence and ferocity of nature. A sudden bolt of lightning, a prolonged, unpredicted snowstorm, could easily end their existence. That weakness, the understanding that death could come at any moment, gave birth to fear. Fear is not merely a negative emotion. It is an original, immensely powerful source of energy. It compelled humans to huddle together in groups, to find the safest shelters, and to seek some supernatural power to pray to cling to. Fear made them revere fire as a god that grants warmth, and wind as a god that could be wrathful. This is the starting point for all religions and primal beliefs in the world. Fear created the first spiritual bond and invisible order, but simultaneously, when they saw they could break a branch into a weapon, or create fire from the friction of two stones, they realized a marvelous ability. They could change and affect the world around them, even if only a very small part. This understanding of their own untapped potential gave birth to aspiration. Aspiration here is not petty greed, but the pure will to overcome helplessness, to leave a meaningful mark on this world. Aspiration drove them to invent the first tools, to build the first homes more durable than caves, and to weave stories to pass down to future generations. Aspiration is the flame that drives material and intellectual creation. Human civilization is not the product of absolute safety or unlimited comfort, but the continuous interplay, the relentless friction between these two opposing energies. It was fear that built the sheltering roof, and it was aspiration that built the pillars reaching up to the blue sky. If humans only had fear, they would forever hide in caves, never daring to venture out. If they only had aspiration but lacked the humility of fear, they would become arrogant, complacent, and ultimately self-destruct. These two forces must run parallel, like two hands gripping the rudder of life. Humans became the creators of the world, not because they were smarter, but because they were the species that learned how to turn their fear into a driving force for self-preservation, and their aspiration into a vision to build the future. Both are ceaseless flames, propelling humanity forward on the path of evolution and creation. My child, I see that humans have a deep and persistent need, one that transcends even basic needs like seeking food or rest. That need is the need to tell and be told stories. When consciousness began to unfold in the human mind, they realized the world around them was too vast, too fierce, and full of mysteries. They had no way to grasp the cause of a hailstorm, couldn't use their hands to touch the source of lightning, or see the beginning of life with their naked eyes. In that confusion and bewilderment, Humans performed a supremely great act of creation. They named and created stories for the incomprehensible. Lightning strikes with a terrifying sound. They called it the voice of a raging sky. The ocean surges, swallowing everything. They called it the secret dwelling of the water god. Life inexplicably sprouts, blooms, and withers. They called it the soul, or some supernatural force. From those simple names, they began to weave complex stories and myths. These stories, my child, are the first seeds of organized language and thought. They were not merely words for pleasant listening, but the first mental tools that helped humans organize the chaos of the universe into an acceptable order. Every story passed down, every inscription, is a delicate thread. When these threads are woven together, they create a vast tapestry of safety and consensus. And that is belief. Belief is not necessarily the absolute truth, but it has the powerful ability to create order in the human world. Thanks to a shared belief in the same story, the same deity, or the same recounted rule, hundreds of strangers can hunt together, sow seeds together, fight together, and protect each other. They accept the same reason to live, the same rule to exist. Human civilization could not have sprouted without the consensus born from these narratives. Look at the paintings drawn on ancient cave walls. That is not just a mere record of a hunt. That is a story recorded in images, about the fear experienced, the gratitude towards the prey, the promises for the next hunting season. The creator of the world, my child, is the first one who knew how to use the narrative as a construction tool. They created realities not with stone, but with sound, concept, and imagination. Humans became great creators because they learned to create and control an invisible world within their minds, before creating it with tangible structures. The narrative is the leap that took them further than all other species. My child, when you observe the deep forest, you will notice a little heeded truth. No species can live entirely alone, separate from everything else. Life is not only a fierce struggle for survival competition, but also a complex symphony of silent cooperation and mutual support. Bend down and look at the roots of ancient trees. They do not just anchor themselves deep into the earth for their own sake. They intertwine, forming an underground network. They share water resources, share nutrients. The tree nourishes the soil nourishes the moss and fungi. The moss and fungi retain water for the weeds. It is a continuous flow of giving and receiving, where every breath of one individual is life for another. Humans, after long days of solitary struggle against harsh nature, finally learned this profound lesson from the earth. A single human, no matter how strong, cannot single-handedly defeat a ferocious forest elephant, nor can they alone erect a monumental structure like the pyramids. But a group of people, when they know how to cooperate and unite, can achieve extraordinary things. They began by building small villages. They did not keep all the harvested rice for themselves. They learned to share, to exchange wood for fish, soil for seeds. This cooperation is the foundation that gave birth to society. Society is not a concentration of the wealthy or the best hunter, but a gathering of people who know how to share burdens and place trust in each other. Human civilization, my child, cannot grow strong solely through the physical might of an exceptional individual, but through the ability to share a common vision, a common task. When a farmer trusts that his sweaty labor in the field will benefit the whole community, and the community will protect him from danger, he will work harder and be more committed. This mutual trust is the invisible glue that keeps communities and societies stable. The greatest creation of humans did not stop at material inventions, like the wheel or tools. Creation also lies in the ability to organize. The creation of a village with common rules, the establishment of a market where everyone trades, the formulation of a simple law. These are all social creations. These creations allow thousands, then millions of people to coexist in peace and strive toward a shared goal. Humans became the creators of the world because they dared to give up a small part of individual independence to gain the synergistic power of the collective. They found that true greatness lies not in dominating others, but in deep connection and ceaseless sharing. This understanding of the importance of cooperation is the invisible foundation for every city, every network, and every complex community that humans have built. My child, when life entered the human form, it discovered a tool more powerful than claws and muscle. It is knowledge. Humans began to memorize. They didn't just remember the sun setting and rising, but also the changing seasons, the the paths of the stars. They began to write, carving marks on clay, stone, and later paper. They began to calculate, measuring rice, the distance between stars. This remembering and calculating did something unprecedented. It allowed the next generation to start where the previous generation had stopped. A fledgling bird always has to learn to fly from scratch, but a child can read what their ancestors learned thousands of years ago. Knowledge created a continuous thread where experience was not lost but accumulated. They learned to control nature, building dams to stop water, using the wind to power sails, using fire to melt metal. In the joy of triumph, they began to forget a basic truth. They themselves are a part of nature. When humans reached the moon, they felt as if they had left the earth, that they had overcome all limits. But the truth is not so. When they looked back at the blue earth from space, they only delved deeper into understanding themselves. That small, vulnerable planet is the reflection of their own soul. Knowledge brought unrivaled creative power, but also the illusion of ultimate power. Humans became the creators of the world because they turned intellect into a tool, but now they face a harder lesson. The ultimate truth is not in controlling the outer world, but in mastering the inner world. Their greatest creation now must be the self-awareness of their own limits. My child, when life found the human form, it discovered a new tool, a subtle and powerful authority stronger than any claw or muscle. It is knowledge. This is the moment when life began to transcend the constraint of pure instinct. Humans began to perform a revolutionary act, conscious memorization. They didn't just remember the sun setting and rising according to the natural cycle. They memorized the changing cycle of seasons, the complex path of stars in the sky. Then they created means to write, carving marks on clay, stone, and later paper to preserve those collective memories. Simultaneously, they developed the ability to calculate, measuring rice, estimating the distance between stars. This systematic memorization and calculation did something unprecedented in the history of life. It allowed the next generation to start where the previous generation had stopped and left off. A fledgling bird always has to learn to fly from scratch, relying on instinct and trial. But a child can read the knowledge that their ancestors accumulated over thousands of years. Knowledge created a continuous thread of experience, where information was not lost but accumulated ceaselessly, creating a solid foundation for development. With this knowledge, they began to learn how to control nature according to their will. They built dams to stop and channel water. They used the power of the wind to pull massive sails on the sea. They used fire to melt metal to create better tools. However, in the joy and fascination of these victories, humans gradually forgot a basic truth. They themselves are still an inseparable part of the nature they are trying to control. When humans reached the moon, some felt as if they had truly left the earth, that they had conquered all physical limits. But the truth is not so. The moment they looked back at the blue, small, vulnerable earth from space, they delved deeper into understanding themselves. That small planet is the perfect reflection of their soul. Knowledge brought unrivaled creative power, but simultaneously brought the illusion of absolute power. Humans became the creators of the world because they turned intellect into the most powerful tool. Now they face the hardest lesson. The ultimate truth is not in controlling the outer world, but in mastering, quieting the inner world. Their greatest creation now is the self-awareness of their limits, so that they can use knowledge with compassion and mindfulness. My child, after humans achieved their greatest accomplishments, from discovering how to grow rice to feed the community, to launching magnificent ships into the vacuum of space, a truth began to manifest clearly, a profound emptiness in the soul. They spent thousands of years erecting skyscrapers, but their souls felt increasingly insecure and lost. They succeeded in conquering the light of distant stars, yet failed to find a way to maintain inner peace within themselves. Their ceaseless creation brought countless material comforts, ease of life, but comfort does not automatically breed happiness. When everything around them was built, controlled, and possessed, they sat down amidst the sparkling achievements and asked themselves with a whisper, "What is still missing in this perfect picture?" The answer, my child, always lies in the place they least expected, the place they most often avoided. in complete stillness. Then one day, some among them bravely turned their backs on the noise and rush of their self-created cities. They did not seek a new war or a new territory. They sat down, seeking reconnection with the earth. They tried to be as still as stone, yet as flexible as a stream of water. They began to do the simplest thing: breathe slowly, listening to the sound of the wind sweeping past instead of the blaring car horns. In that moment of stillness, all illusions of separation dissolved. They suddenly remembered that they are inherently an organic part of this earth. Their bodies are made of the earth's matter. Their breath is the air of the sky. They are not the sole rulers, but merely the temporary guardians of the planet's beauty and balance. This act of seeking stillness is a creation no less grand than the invention of fire or the wheel, creating peace in the soul. They no longer sought a new tool to change the world, a new city to live in, or a new deity to pray to. They simply returned to the oldest and truest home, their very self. Humans, after creating everything tangible and intangible, are beginning to discover the final and ultimate creation: letting go. Letting go of the need to control everything, letting go of the need to possess and prove oneself. This stillness, where there is no longer struggle, is the source from which all most genuine creation flows. It teaches them that doing nothing at all is precisely what constitutes the greatest greatness.